Have you guys noticed that we do triplet?
This is Auto Collabs.
Or like a triplet. So like they'll drop a power bomb, and one of us kicks it off. It's like
I haven't noticed that, but now I'm going to be listening for it.
What we need to do is we need to make like a segment about that where we like.
Well, so the problem is I caught us doing it about halfway through, and then because it's such a natural instinct, I mean that like they're literally dropping knowledge and wisdom, and then on the
You're
third
like, no,
time,
don't do it.
I caught myself, guys. I almost swallowed my own tongue. Like I almost choked. I had to quickly hit the mute button on the Roadcaster because it was like, and I was like,
We just thought you had 8-board pepperoni pizza. I think there's probably no better intro to this episode than that whole thing when you started with, I don't know if you noticed, but the reality is this interview that we just did with Danny Zaslavsky from VinCue and Country Hill Motors, he splits his time between, Dealer World and Vendor World. He was full of insights. My desk is just full of notes because that's just the way the conversation was. When you're around people that are thoughtful and are hands in the dirt, then the knowledge starts coming out from experience.
Danny is this kind of guy that, I'll never forget. He had me on one of their like VinCue webinar podcasts, and he is willing to essentially recognize that who he's in the room with is the most important thing that's going on right there, right now. And I would expect that he's that way with his businesses and with the people that he's around. But he was willing on a podcast that like a couple hundred people were sitting on this webinar watching. He was willing to literally just speak directly to me in this very caring and intentional way. And I've noticed that in the way that he approaches, and even like the staff at VinCue that I've met, and I'm sure the staff like all of his staff kind of exudes. And we'll kind of hear a little bit in this interview a portion of that, and the way he approaches even other vendors across the industry. And so it's a very intentional way, and whether you are a partner with their product or not, paying attention to how he approaches the industry, how he approaches dealers and approaches other partners, and even just his staff and team, I think we would all do well to take heed to that. I think he's a servant of our industry.
Yeah, we're excited for you to hear that in this interview with Danny Zaslavsky.
All right, we are hanging out with Danny here of Country Hill Motors, as well as DealerCue, VinCue. It's a lot of different things that he's doing, and we're really excited to have a conversation just about the industry and the way that you're a part of it. So thanks for joining us, Danny.
What's up, guys?
All right, I got to clear the air. Real talk. The first thing that I said,
starting off with real talk.
Real talk. I was like, Danny, and I was about to say your last name, and I was like, I've said your last name 15 different ways to 10 different people. So what I'm going to start with is clearing the air on saying your last name, because you've said it to me even in a voice message before, and I still
Can I give it a whirl?
was like, I got that like,
Come
in my
on.
stomach.
Can I try? Can I try?
Common spelling, guys. Let's go. Yeah,
Zaslavsky. Zaslavsky.
No.
Zaslavsky.
Zaslavsky.
Oh, Kyle for the win.
Yes.
I just set him up. I knew I was wrong. I'm just kidding. I didn't know.
Cirillo's still like, is that a Z?
yeah, I'm like, we call it a Z in Canada. Danny Zaslavsky.
Yeah. Be silent.
Danny, I gotta start by asking because a lot of people now know you as VinCue, right? VinCue's kind of taken this, this role in automotive to kind of redefine the inventory management system and how you bring data together. And now you've got even we're going to talk about this, but you've got even more dashboards and more touch points across inventory management and websites and all that. But, I don't think a lot of people really know the legacy of where you came from. And I'm privy to a little bit of your origin story in automotive, but take us back just real quickly to how you got in automotive and what that foray in the retail side of the business looked like and still is.
You know how they say life, you never know what life is preparing you for. So early when I was 19, 18, I was working at the car dealership. At that time, I was selling cars and just got into marketing. And I met a guy named Matt, who my dad met at a Sears, and sold us our first computer. And he came to the dealership and installed our first computer because we paid him on the side to figure it out, and then gave us also some code because we wanted to write some.
Pause.
Yes.
For all the youngins out there.
He was like, you said Sears.
Oh yeah.
You said Sears. For all the youngins, that's a department store that used to be attached to these things called malls. I know rarely people go to these things.
And before that, it
what's
was a
even more
catalog
crazy is
business.
They sold things people wanted, and
Oh, yeah.
some of those things were computers. So that's what, for the context for the young people, that's what Danny's getting at here.
Oh my goodness.
You know, in Syracuse, New York, there are literally houses standing that were ordered from Sears catalogs.
No way.
No kidding.
Really?
Yes, way you could buy a house from Sears.
My dad freaking loved that place. I mean, loved
yeah.
that place. They just took the building down like 4 months ago. I
Oh,
swear to
man.
God, it's on Metcalf. I know exactly where it is because that's like, quite frankly, Sears was like my entry into the car business, and you'll figure out why in a second. But
All right. Now I've cleared the air. You keep going.
That was a valid segue, though, Kyle. We'll give you that one.
That's fair.
agreed. So a guy worked there, I told you, named Matt, came, installed our first computer. He figured out that we couldn't do what now is called syndication. And the guy's name was Matt Watson. He's the guy who was the founder, CTO of Vin Solutions, Vin Stickers at the time. And him and I struck a friendship. And he started building the company down the street from me. I watched him, like I'd go visit him and see, like, watching his business grow. And I remember thinking, shit, I should like ask him, like, maybe he'll hire me. Maybe I should go work with him. And I never did because I remember thinking I have more work to do. I've always had a little bit of this imposter syndrome where I had to master something before I could feel comfortable taking it to the next level. And at some point, Matt's career just took off, and we've remained friends. But then about like 6 years ago, him and I kept in contact, and I was ready to start a software company. And I called him up and I said, I feel like the world's saying it's time for you and I to do something. And he's the one who introduced me to Chris Hoke, who is my business partner today. And from that, VinCue has been born. And so Matt's still my friend, lives down the street, and certainly a lot more cool stuff in between there. But it was born from a problem. I mean, at the car dealership, we were using like 6 different systems to solve the same problem. And all my people were running in different directions, like using this app or using that system or talking this language because they're using that software. And it all boiled down to the information about a car. And it's like, what the heck are we looking at in the screen that's driving our behavior to go do something, whether to make a purchase or make a sale or to justify some behavior? And it was really critical back then, I think more so now, that like we pointed all the arrows in the same direction of the company. But back then, all the arrows were pointed all these different directions, even though the company was trying to go this way. So that's why VinCue exists.
So I don't know this story. Tell me about like your history in the car business. Is it a family business?
Yep. So my parents are from Ukraine. So Zaslavsky, Zelensky. I'm not comparing.
I'm just saying. Just an observation.
Just an observation. No, I could never. That guy's way more courageous. So my parents came over from Ukraine in '79. My dad started a shoe repair business, and it happened to be down the street from what was Country Hill Motors at the time, with 3 cars on the lot and a small part of a building. And my dad walked up the street one day, and there was this dude there named Josh, who's the guy who waves in our photos, and said he ended up buying a car from him, and then said, "Hey, can I come work with you?" Because my dad loved cars, and being an immigrant, he had that entrepreneurial spirit. And what my dad, for some reason, was called to at the time was to figure out how to buy the right cars at the right places. So he was thinking like, what can I do that's innovative to go buy the right cars? And so he had an idea to buy like 3 or 4 of those Nextel phones, passed them out to new car dealers, said, hey, when you're bidding, trading for a car, page me. I'll tell you what the heck it's worth, and then I'll come buy it. And not only am I going to buy it, I'm going to buy the good, bad, and the ugly, all of it. And so my dad would literally like brawl fight to get in and push wholesalers out of the way so he could buy the right cars, until eventually he like conquered Kansas City, and he was like, I need more. So then he went to Harley stores, figured out that they trade for cars, and Camping World, and they trade for cars. And so we solved procurement differently because we just were hungry for it. And in the meantime, he's calling me, every day and like, have you sold anything? Have you sold anything? So I'm at the dealership. Growing up, we didn't have a manager. It was just me and 4 other guys selling cars. And the way he was buying cars gave us the ability to have actually a niche in the market, because we were finding cars that we could sell in the $3,000 to $12,000 price range when we first started. And we were a cash lot. Like, we're not talking about buy here, pay here, or subprime. I mean, this was cash. And so what we figured out was like, if you can give a consumer a $30,000 or $40,000 experience when they buy a $5,000 or $6,000 car, then you want them for life, because they don't have 3 other cars in the driveway that are sitting there and that they can count on. So you got to make them feel safe in the decision and the promise and in the experience. And we also figured out that like most people didn't like to shop. They just wanted to get it done so they can start experiencing all the things that they were thinking about in why they decided to buy the car. So
you're kind of still figuring out the best way to buy a car.
For sure. Yeah.
I love
the journey.
It's like all the way back to the beginning. Everyone wants to jump in.
I gotta ask though, do you find I have trouble articulating this to some people in my circles. My parents are from Europe. My father's Italian, my mother's from Portugal. Do you find the European entrepreneur grit is at a different level than like for example, we've glamorized kind of hustle culture, what we call it here in North America, but to a European immigrant, we call that Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, it's just did you find that growing up? Like, I'm hearing you talk about your father's creativity, resourcefulness, and procurement. Do you find like that's something unique that's passed on to you that you've observed from them?
The rules are different. When you're in Ukraine, somebody throws a brick through your window, you don't call your insurance company, you replace the window. The rules are different. So you don't get the same security blanket that you do here in the States. And unconsciously, we just kind of know the boundaries because we grew up in them. The boundaries are very different when you grow up in a different country, depending on the country you come from, right? And depending on whether you had money or not when you're growing up. My parents were super poor. So so when you get here and you see all this opportunity, then it's like overload, right? And then you're like, what am I going to grab onto? And what you grab onto is really important because immigrants come in waves, and we've got plenty of people who grabbed onto the wrong thing, and we got people who grabbed onto the right thing and made the best of it. I think it's a little bit of life, but yeah, I think the way you grow up and where you grow up is determines how much grit you have. There was a quote that Elon Musk said that I freaking love. Somebody asked him, they said, will your kids be as successful as you? And he said, only if they struggle as much as I've struggled. And I was like, okay. And as a dad of almost 9-year-old twin boys, I think about that a lot. Yeah.
I find that really interesting. I mean, it is something, some refer to it as DNA, but it is. It's like, I love how you position that the rules are different. But it also kind of, to me, it's always been inspiring because it shows just how powerful the human spirit is. Like when we're placed with our feet to the fire, we perform so well. And,
for sure.
And you just kind of wish a lot of people could experience that. As a dealer owner, I want to ask just a quick follow-up to that. What have you found works well to maybe instill some of that confidence, that inner belief into your people so that they can I guess, understand that they're more powerful probably than they give themselves credit for?
So at VinCue, I have a line, and you got to understand the context of it before I say it, because it can be inferred the wrong way. But the line is run faster, because you get to earn to work smarter. You just do. And in the meantime, if you don't know how, then run faster. And they get to run faster than me. So the goal is to outrun me, because I'm in the weeds. I love what I do. I just truly love it. I love solving problems. I love learning. I love being in with people that can level me up and teach me and challenge me. It's the way I'm wired. So you surround yourself around people who can thrive in that kind of environment, and then run faster. So truly, don't ask anybody anything that they can't, that you wouldn't do. And I just got off a call with a 26 store group that we're super excited to go on board, and I'm the one that's going out there and taking my team, and I'm on the front line, and eventually some of my guys will run faster, and they push me out of the way and say, "I got this. You just got to trust me." And I'll say, "You bet." And that's what I'm asking them to do, is
Right.
make me obsolete.
That's good.
Love it.
That's good. Hey, the interesting thing about a platform like yours, right? That you're executing on a few different things, and if people don't know VinCue, they should get to know it. You've recently added these websites and then scorecards, but the core of your technology is this inventory management system that's bolstered by a vehicle acquisition system, and then you've kind of built out since then, recognizing needs. And what I think that's interesting, there's some technologies in automotive that can live in somewhat of a silo, right? By their nature, they only have to connect to one or two things. But an inventory management system, it requires a unique level of connectivity, of connected data, of understanding other relationships and partners in order to equip dealers to do what they need to do. I'd love to hear a little bit about like your journey in connecting a lot of those points. Because I think that's a journey that Paul was saying on a call we had earlier today, that it's a journey that more and more people in automotive are starting to take, that more and more people are going, okay, I recognize that I need all of these hands shaking in agreement to make what I need to do work. But there's a unique, your type of platform is unique in that you literally can't start unless you start that way. So walk us on that journey a little bit about bringing together these partners, creating these connections, so that you can serve dealers better, and not just creating one siloed, ecosystem.
We didn't get into a very easy business. So when I was growing up, there's a couple platforms that you can live in. You live in your CRM, you live in your DMS, and you live in your system where you price your car. And as technology has evolved, like, Viato, for example, has done incredible things over the last 15, 20 years. I mean, carved out a psychology and methodology that has really helped the automotive industry in really big ways. What that taught me is you really spend your decision points are where you do pricing. It's where you make acquisition decisions, and it's where you make selling decisions. And there's so many variables to that for disposition and channels and sources, and you can get well into the weeds. But that trigger sets the motion of everybody in your organization, your salespeople, your sales managers, your detail people, your title clerks. I mean, literally everybody, right? So it's a really critical point. And so what we've been creating is the next evolution of what Dale started, which is a pricing system that also is tied directly to inventory management, that's tied directly to acquisition, that's tied directly to merchandising, that's tied directly to private party, that's tied directly to notifications on your watch, cell phone, or scoreboard. That's tied directly to other dealers, because that's at that point, what you have is a really strong engine in the middle, or cannon, that you can point. And with online disruptors that are coming, with technology changing, with different dealership models happening, what's going to become more and more important are those decision points. And you got to have some muscle in that technology where those decisions are made.
So when it comes to testing this and testing new ideas and putting some of these pieces together, is your store kind of the guinea pig? Like, right?
Always
like,
has been.
and I know it probably started that way, but I'm wondering, because there's probably some separation of powers between the two now. And there's like, what's the mentality when like this new thing is kind of brought in? Do you get some eye rolls? Oh, Danny's got another great idea. Or is like there a culture now of just like, all right, let's try it?
Both. It's like when you fly in anybody, they're always more intelligent than you. Like the expert, always lives out of town. There's a little bit of both. That's a
great saying. The expert always lives out of town.
So in the beginning, I mean, you got to build up the grit or the stomach to test stuff and know that sometimes it's not going to work. And then the reaction to that, right? You might say, well, screw this thing. It's never going to work. Blah, blah, blah. This has got to work. Why is this number not right? Whatever. And when you can educate the people that are using that, then all of a sudden it's all about one thing: control. They've got to feel like they've got input and control. And then what ends up happening is once those people start seeing their vision implemented in the technology process, then like their eyes light up and you're like, oh my God, I'm making a difference. And I think that's what being alive is about. So we wrap that in that idea of making a difference. And that's what we're trying to do. Not all ideas are the right ideas, but having a dealership to give real input, and there's no shortage of it. And then also have a place to actually see if it sucks or it doesn't is great. But we're lucky enough to have outgrown just my dealership. Because I'm an independent guy, and I certainly have processes, but we have a great franchise, Patrick Abad, who's on the cover of Digital Dealer Magazine. He's a VinCue client. We're stoked to work with him, and others that say, yeah, give me the early stuff. Let's try it. Because you better fail fast and pivot while it's young, because that's important.
I think that brings, whenever we speak with someone who bridges that gap between industry partner side and dealer side, because they do have a foot legitimately in both sides, I love celebrating that and making it more known, because I think it brings a certain level of credibility to what you're doing. Because I know that, as an industry partner in several different ventures, it can be really easy to lob stuff over the fence, right? And start my sentences with dealers just need to, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that the more industry partners there are who also are operating inside the confines and the struggles in the day in, day out of the dealership world serve everyone so much better. And I just I want to give you cred for that, because it's difficult.
Oh, thanks, man.
And I also want to make sure more people know that, because I think it carries with it a certain weight right out of the gate, like from conversation number one.
David Long called it servant mentality, and I heard him say that the other day, and I couldn't agree with that more. It's really, really smart. But that's what we got to keep.
Yeah. Chip. I see body posture, like questions queuing up, like it's like pulling the slingshot back.
Who's going first?
Michael's. I can't.
You first, babe. I'll never forget when Kyle said that to Paul. I love it so much.
Where Kyle's like, you first, babe.
No, one thing that I thought I really loved how you positioned here earlier. Coming up in the industry, this is my 22nd year in the industry, and I love this new, fresh vibe that kind of our age group, our generation is bringing in, which is you spoke about a competitor in the most loving way I've ever heard. Whereas like when I was coming up, I remember, when I first launched my company, I would straight up go to conferences and dudes would be like, they'd lean into me and they'd be like, I know where you live. I know how many children you have. I know, and I was always like, holy jeez, this is cutthroat. I love how you kind of paid homage to a competitor and spoke to the lessons that you learned. And then so gracefully kind of just highlighted what you believe makes your offering unique. And I think that's really important because it feeds into the narrative of what we're hoping to accomplish here on Auto Collabs, right? It's about bringing in different points of view and understanding and showing empathy. And so I just wanted to give you kudos for that. I thought that was
thanks,
really
man.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's taken. We have the luxury of looking back over the last 20 years and seeing a lot of things happen, and have the privilege to see clearly what needs to be done now. Right? I didn't carve that trail. Someone else did. So it's only because of that we're able to innovate today. So there's no question. I don't like scarcity mentality. I think you're not going to get very far in life with it. Plus, it just sucks living with that kind of fear. So ain't nobody got time for that.
So,
Yes.
so
To
that
quote
means
the great sweet
no
mayor,
to the
right?
post-it, no to the post-it note that has a heart emoji next to "crush them!" exclamation point.
That's great. I'll ask before kind of we wrap this up. I do want to ask this question because you're on the dealer side and you're on the industry partner side, and you have an innovative mentality toward technology. What, like, as you look over, especially the next 2 or 3 years in the way that dealerships are operating and interacting, what are you positioning yourself for, both on the technology and the dealership side, to ensure that in 2 or 3 years you're operating in the way that it needs to be? Like, what are you doing right now that's positioning things to make sure that in 2 or 3 years you're in the right position to be successful and to serve customers well, that maybe isn't something that you fully executed today, but you're planning toward?
As a dealer or as VinCue?
Well, talk kind of through both. I'm sure they kind of lean into each other, if I had to guess.
Yeah, well, it's true because I mean we're
He's like, nah.
yeah.
Not really. Not really. No, they're just running separate lanes. I don't really let them talk. That's only in my brain, and I segment it, right? Yeah.
Glad we all agree. So at the dealership, I think I'll say this. I think digital retailing, the website that the consumers shop on, and anything else that feeds into what the consumer touches is one thing, and that's consumer experience. So I don't think digital retailing belongs as a separate thing from a website. I think they're one thing. Right now, they're sold as separate things. There's a lot of separate things being sold out there because of experts. And I think when I and along with my team start thinking about it more holistically, like we've done with VinCue, with end-to-end inventory appraisal to back to acquisition, customer experience is the next thing to group, and to do it with the same filter of what exists and how can we make it better. Because I think when you couple the back end with the front end in a way that tightens the process and operation, then you get more efficiency and scale. I don't like to run faster. I'm doing it now, but one day I hope to work smarter. So that's what that answers the question on both sides, for the dealership and for VinCue. The other thing is, I think if I had it my way, dealers would regress a little bit in the way that they communicate with each other, because auctions, in my opinion, only exist to create confidence between a buyer and a seller. Period. Why the hell do we have to pay all this money for confidence? I think there needs to be a better way. So that is the journey I'm on at VinCue right now.
Can we get a T-shirt that says "Why the hell do we pay this much money for confidence"?
I know, I'm writing it down literally.
That was strong.
That might end up being the title of this episode.
That was strong. I also just want to be very clear that the first part of that statement was not a paid advertisement for a SoduCon and solving the customer experience episode.
Yeah, right. We're just that aligned. We're just that aligned.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a SoduCon, you are bringing some really you're bringing something really cool to a SoduCon, and when we set out, we were like, let's think of this from an activation mindset, right? No one's standing at a booth picking up squishy balls and business cards. So, what's the VinCue team representing? What are you bringing to a SoduCon, and what can people expect?
Well, you guys challenged us. You said we're not doing demos; we're having experiences. So we said, game on. So we hired a team and rented this. It's called the Titan. It's a Hollywood level. It's got 8 11K cameras on this ball, and we took it around car dealerships. We took it around VinCue, and you're going to get to experience the software in a car dealership in an Oculus, VR style. So we're bringing that, and we're excited. We it's not done yet, so wish us luck.
I love it. I love the ambition.
But hey, we think it's going to be cool.
Well, Danny, I can't wait to experience this. I hope you have some footage of you walking through the dealership with this 11K surrounded ball thing that you're talking about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We want to see that too.
You got to ship us the BTS footage.
You do.
Ship us because we'll put that up. Yeah.
Because that's how it should be. Like when people collaborate on something, they should all bring some energy and new ideas, and they should all encourage one another with what they're doing. And that's part of the game, right? You always try to level each other up. Oh, yeah, well, check this out. That's what great collaboration is about. Danny, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I cannot wait to hang out at a SoduCon.
Thank you, guys, and thanks for having us. It's going to be fun.
There are like many phrases written down on my desk. I'm gonna say one, and you guys say if you wrote down anything. But I love when he brought up that thing about Elon Musk saying, when someone asked him, "Will your kids be as successful as you?" and he said, "Only if they've struggled as much as I have." Obviously, Danny, coming from an immigrant family, understands what it is. He said, very poor. He grew up in Ukraine. Like the whole thing about that was just like fired me up inside. Only if they struggle. Like the depth of the struggle really matches the heights of the success. So that's
all right. I'll give you mine. I'm not even going to give context to that. That was perfect. Mine was the part where he said, and I mentioned it during the interview, where he said, "Why the hell are we paying so much for confidence?" Yeah, and I was like, "Skirt."
But he's talking about auctions. That was
when he was talking about auctions, which was so good. I never thought of it that way. Like everybody keeps saying, a lot of these online auctions and things like Car Offer are coming and saying, "Hey, look, there's a better way for dealers to pass inventory between dealers, and if we communicate better." And the way he laid that in with like, you're just literally paying for confidence.
Yeah, he was like, auctions only exist to create confidence between the buyer and the seller.
Do you know what's interesting about that on the back end though? Is that if you have to pay for confidence, it's that you lack trust.
Yes.
Ooh.
Did we get our three in on that?
Follow our tongues.
All right, Cirillo.
That's deep, Mount Sear.
You got a quote? What did you like?
I liked his bit about how the expert's always from out of town. And the thought actually was different. I mean, I feel like I've experienced that personally where it's like, he's from down the street. We don't need to pay attention to what he says.
Yes.
But then my mind immediately shifted and I'm like, but how often do we do that in our own business? We discredit past experience and work, like just everything that could be right under our noses. I mean, I think the two of you even had an experience with this where you found somebody that was so talented who had discredited their own media abilities and things of that nature. And they didn't even know they could make a living doing it. And you were able to help shift their perspective. And I wonder how often is the expert right inside of our business and they don't know it and I don't know it. And I'm expecting that it's some, subject matter expert from out of town.
I mean, I was just literally thinking of when I tell my kids something and then somebody else tells it to them, and it's the most genius thing. It's like, I've been telling you that for 30 years. Well, not 30 years.
Also, I realized in this interview how incredibly immature I am because
You just realized this?
yeah, I know. The eye
You
rolls
had
from my
pig
wife
nose
and
and
children.
ears on when you entered the Zoom call, Michael. He's laughing because I'm right.
Oh, Georgia. I'm excited to see how this VR dealership thing plays out at a SoduCon.
Oh, yeah.
Because my mind legitimately immediately went to walking into this Titan thing and just seeing people sitting everywhere and wondering, why are they sitting everywhere? So we put on the Oculus to find out they're all sitting either in a service lounge or in the bathroom. They're like in the VR bath. I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. I don't know that's where they're supposed to hang out. No wonder they've been in here for 45 minutes.
It's a mess. Well, thank you on behalf of myself, Kyle Mounts here, Paul J. Daly, and Michael Cirillo. Thanks for listening to Auto Collabs. We'll see you next time. Welcome to Auto Collabs.